All right, Andrew, hit us with that Sift Spoil theme song for this week.
Oh, you, bang bang, bang bang, we love you. Vroom vroom, bang bang, the rocks too. Boom boom.
Very nice.
I forgot that I was supposed to do that, so I just made that up on the spot. That was a totally original song nobody'd ever heard of before.
Welcome to the post-pod Sift Spoil, where the theme song is different every week because we never want to give anything away. Please make sure and listen to the podcast review first. If you haven't seen the movie, we highly recommend you hold off and listen to this later, not just because we're going to spoil it, but also because we're going to be jumping all over the place, and you may get really confused. Let's talk Fate of the Furious spoilers, guys.
So we start off in Havana, Cuba, with Dom and Michelle Rodriguez, Lenny. They are enjoying a honeymoon.
Did you just call her Lenny?
Isn't that her name?
Isn't it Letty?
Is it Letty?
Yeah, Letty.
It's 100% Letty with T's.
I've slept since yesterday.
I thought you misspoke.
I just thought it was
Mice and Men?
Yeah, I thought it was a Mice and Men reference. So
Dom and Letty are in Havana, Cuba. They're doing their whole racing thing, starting off with actually a halfway decent, film choreographed race. I like the whole overhead.
I really enjoyed the entire Cuban sequence, and I think that was because I just went to Havana like 3 weeks ago, and I was seeing all these like streets that I recognized, which was really neat.
Nice.
But the entire cold open was like, this is the Fast and Furious I remember from like a decade ago.
It was,
and it was fun.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
It was a fun homage to the first movie. There's been very little actual racing in the recent movies, and this was an actual race for a pink slip.
Kind of miss it.
The only thing was, in this one, it was so much more ridiculous than the racing was in the first few.
Yeah.
Like the flaming car driving backwards, the fact... This is the thing that kills me. There were 2 or 3 times this happened during this movie. People just jump out of moving
and they're
vehicles.
Fine.
And they're fine, and these vehicles are going hundreds of miles per hour, and it's just like, you'd at least scrape your knee,
Not Vin Diesel.
No.
Yeah, and he just gets up and then like starts hanging out with all the adoring kids of Havana who are like, "Yay, you're our hero, Dom."
Okay, here's what I want to know. If you see a car barreling towards you on fire, would you gather right in front of it like all those people did? Like,
yeah, man, it's going to turn. Don't worry about it.
He's got brakes.
Yeah. So
I love something I love about this, and by love I mean hate, about this franchise is that why are they still using walkie-talkies to communicate? They should have both hands on the wheel and just be using Bluetooth. These are $1 million cars, and they can't afford a Bluetooth connection.
Well, they spend all the money on the cars.
And similarly, in that scene in Havana, Vin Diesel starts yelling, "Get out of the way! Get out of the way!" And it's like, do you think they're going to hear you over the engines, the screaming, and the explosion in front of your vehicle?
Yeah.
I just thought that was really funny that he's trying to warn them audibly of an issue that they couldn't possibly hear.
Well, and they do the same thing.
And that's the whole movie. Like, how are they talking to each other right now?
They do the same thing from
there's
car
a
to car.
bit where there's a bit where Ludacris was giving directions to Gibson as he's basically skiing on the back of a door that he harpooned during the ice sequence of this movie. And he's like, hang on, buddy. And it's like, he can't hear you. Who are you talking to? And the movie just sort of it just sort of plays like every character can talk to every other character at any given moment, regardless of technology or feasibility, and you just have to accept that.
Yeah, I think it's
always been a thing with this franchise.
Yeah, I think they do the because movie thing better than any other movie. It's just like we need them to hear this, so they're going to hear it. We need this thing to happen, so it's going to happen.
Because
movie. And that's just, part of what happens here.
So while Dom and Letty are down in Havana, Cuba on their honeymoon, Dom is approached by a woman played by Charlize Theron named Cypher. She, unbeknownst to the audience at this point, shows Dom something that proves that he is in trouble. He knows that whatever she says that he has to do, she's got him. And so she says, "You're going to betray your family. You pretty much work for me now." So he does. He betrays the family.
At that point in the script, did you guys have any idea what it could have been?
Not at all.
I thought I just assumed it was somebody he loved that was captured.
I thought it was something to do with Brian. So
Oh,
and
did you?
I assumed it would be a person as well. It had to have been someone tied up, and we later find out that it is. But it was surprising to me who it turned out to be, but also because I was like, who's left? Who hasn't? who is either absent from this movie or that hasn't been killed off? And it's a very, very short list when you actually think about it. And again, you consider the fact that Paul Walker's not going to come back for this. There's
I
no
actually
cameos.
thought thought for a split second maybe they were going to cameo him in for that person, but yeah.
Similarly, there's a moment towards the end of the film. Again, jumping all over the place here.
That's what we do.
Where two paraglider guys come flying into Cypher's super stealth radar, efficient aircraft, and they land on the tail of the airplane, and they sort of take over. And there's a moment where these two guys come flying in, they land on the back of the airplane, and they take off their helmets. And for a split moment, I thought it was going to be Mia and Brian. And I was so excited, like, oh, that would be so great if they brought Jordana Brewster back, and then just kind of had, I don't know, more of that CGI Paul Walker stuff, just for like a quick cameo. And for the briefest of moments, I was applauding, like, oh, yay! And it's like, oh, it's just the other characters who haven't even been gone for 12 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was going to be Jason Statham and Luke Evans. I knew it. As soon as I saw them land in there, and I'm like, okay, they're going to take over. Okay, I know who it is. Because it's obvious that Jason Statham didn't die.
See, I don't think that's true. I mean, it is true, but there was part of me, because what I think was smart about what they did there is it was Statham, who Dom wouldn't have the same, like, oh, he's on our team reaction to. Like, I can see him shooting Statham. Like if it was somebody else, I can't see it being realistic.
Let's not forget that Jason Statham's character killed DK at the end of Tokyo Drift.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Or rather, at the middle of Tokyo Drift and the end of number 6.
So
he did kill one of his friends.
Based on the previous parts of the movie where Statham was starting to make nicey nice with The Rock and the others, I assumed he wasn't dead, but the movie at least had a legitimate psychological way that you could go, oh yeah, he could absolutely have killed Statham.
Let's talk about the biggest tease in movie history. No, it's not the biggest tease in movie history.
I was going to say, where are we going?
I wanted The Rock to fight Statham this entire time. They're teasing it the entire movie.
Yeah.
These guys are finally going to fight.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And then Aaron and I are waiting for a post-credit scene because there's a post-credit scene like, we were talking about, I bet it's going to be The Rock and Statham like in a ring somewhere, and they're actually going to fight. It's going to be great. No, they talk about it literally the entire movie, how bad they're going to beat each other up, and they never do. It is such a letdown. That's why I hate this movie.
That's the main reason.
That's the main reason why I hate this movie.
Well, good. I'm glad we finally got to the bottom of it. No, I totally agree. That is a weird thing to build up.
I don't know, because they set it up and it seems like they were missing something. The end of the movie needed 2 more scenes. It needed their fight, and it needed that handshake between Dom and Luke Hobbs. It really needed both of those moments.
Yeah, I totally agree. So after Dom is they go to this German base pretty much to steal this EMP, led by The Rock's character Luke Hobbs. And Dom runs him off the road, steals the EMP, and now he is officially in the wind. He is a ghost, and everybody knows he is working for Cypher now. Mr. Nobody he doesn't imprison. He tries to break Luke Hobbs out of prison, and that's where he says no.
The Rock goes to prison because they had to disavow him, while he was there in Germany, right? Was that in Germany?
It was in Germany.
That scene where he meets like Little Nobody,
Scott Eastwood.
Yeah, I love that.
He just breaks his chains and
just pins him right up against the wall.
Don't mention his kid.
I especially like that. I was waiting to find out like what his real name is, and some like internet links have him listed as like Eric. But the credits of the movie just say Little Nobody. That was his like official character name, which I kind of liked.
Yeah,
especially because
I hope they keep it that way.
Especially in the movie because they're like, oh no, that one's gonna stick.
Yeah,
that's how nicknames work.
Yeah. No, I really dug that. I liked Scott Eastwood. I've always liked him as an actor. I hope he gets bigger roles because he's kind of been stuck on the sidelines of a lot of the movies he's done the last few years.
I hope he gets better.
I don't know that he can. I don't know that he can like quote unquote replace Paul Walker, but I think that they want to move the series in that direction. They want to have that sort of vanilla and chocolate sort of dynamic with the two heroes. One's sort of like a cop that's sort of been reformed, and the other is an outlaw that's been reformed to the good side, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I think they want to do that, but this movie felt like let's just ease him in, have him in a couple of the scenes, have him still wet behind the ears, and I feel like we're going to see a lot more of him in the next one.
Could be.
Yeah. So while Luke's in prison, he finds out that his not cellmate, but the opposing cell across from him is where we see Jason Statham's character.
Deckard, right?
Is it Deckard? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they both are... There's a prison riot, which for me was the best part of the movie.
That was a fun scene.
That was the best part of the whole movie.
When that prison riot starts, it starts so quick and with such an impact. It was like, there was like a shot of adrenaline
you're like,
that I
here we
wasn't
go.
ready for. Like I knew it was kind of coming, but it was on me so fast. There was a lot of adrenaline there.
Well, because that's not how you open up doors to an Ultramax prison.
Right,
you don't
yeah.
tase a door and then they all open up.
They all open, and every single prisoner clotheslines a guard. Like it's like you're diving after them or whatever.
And then
It's
that one-
It
amazing.
was a very
Trap
well
song.
choreographed escape. They must
Yeah.
have been planning it for weeks.
That's right.
So here's another thing I hate about not only this movie in particular, but the series as a whole. That's not how hacking works.
Well, of
Every
course
single
not, yeah.
scene that deals with hacking is so dumb. It's not fun dumb. It's just dumb for me.
Especially in a post Mr. Robot world where you have a TV show that actually does the hacking.
That's what I was going to say.
It felt reminiscent of Enemy of the State. It's like, oh yeah, we can just zoom in on your grocery bag from space and then turn it around and see what's inside it. No, you can't. I don't believe any of this.
Kind of like the new Jason Bourne movie did that too,
Yeah.
where they like, let's hack the
Same
cell
crap.
phone next to the laptop so we can bounce off the cell phone to get into the laptop.
I think Enemy of the State got away with it because that movie came out 19 years ago before we really understood satellites, technology, internet hacking. But these days, it's like the audience is a little bit more intelligent and a little bit more doubtful of some of the claims. And this movie is just, oh, you have this MacGuffin. Well, I have this MacGuffin Ultra, so I can hack into your hack. It's like that's a submarine in the Russian Arctic. You can't just jumpstart it with a remote control.
Little do you know.
So bananas. But again, it's the type of series where I'm like, all right, this is what we're doing.
All right. So now we're going to fast forward to, for me, was the worst part of the movie, but you guys loved it. And that's the World War Z cars.
Zombie
No, I
cars.
didn't. I thought this was one of the worst sequences in the movie, actually.
Okay.
Especially that shot of all the cars sliding around the turn, sliding into each other.
Yeah, the World
It
War
just
Z
looked
scene.
so computery. It looked very like rubbery, like CGI. It didn't look fluid. It didn't look real.
Nor
I
does
did not care
it.
for
Nor
that.
does it make any sense.
None of those
either
cars-
action-wise or anyway.
You
know,
can't hack those cars.
It's a stupid plan. Like it's just dumb.
Yeah.
And if so help me, if this sets back self-driving technology because people think this kind of stuff happens, I'll be so if I pass away before self-driving cars are a legitimate thing, I'm going to be so angry
You can get
at
a
movies
Tesla.
like this.
Tesla now has...
No, but I mean a real world where I just hop in the car and it drives me places. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that
I
needs to
agree
happen
with-
now.
I'm right there with
Yeah,
you.
and unfortunately, the truck lobby and a majority of our Congress are going to shoot that down because they need to save the jabs. It's like, no, you're going to kill people. 16,000 people a year die in car accidents. More than that, I think. And this movie is like, wow, be afraid. Cars will kill you. No, they won't.
No, the cars
Whenever-
cars will do it so much better.
Google has logged 1 million miles with 1 or 2 fender benders.
And both of
That
them weren't
stuff
the
is
fault of the
locked
self-driving
down
car.
tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both times they got rear-ended
I
by
agree.
another car.
I agree totally. I worry that this type of scene is going to affect public perception of what is otherwise a rock solid technology that we really need to be embracing.
Isn't that the
as
most
fast as possible?
Isn't that one of the most frustrating things when you see something that would be good for everybody, and yet people just because
Nobody
they're
gets it yet?
averse to change, they just don't get it yet?
After Carpocalypse 2017, Dom is finally confronted by his old team. And that was actually a really cool sequence where they had the harpoons and they were like trying to, stop him from moving.
I thought that was really great. That was the kind of suspension of disbelief that I like in this franchise.
Yeah.
That is not something I think is possible. I never saw those harpoon guns on the cars in the earlier scenes. They just sort of magically appeared when necessary.
Because movie.
But it felt, because movie. But it felt just plausible enough that I went with it. Whereas the cars driving, first of all, who puts a parking garage on the roof? They're always in Manhattan. If you've ever been to downtown Manhattan, they're almost always underground. They don't have that space up top. That's expensive office, whatever.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. When they finally got to that moment, I was like, all right, this I like. Let's have more of this in the movie.
Yeah.
That was the scene one of the scenes I was talking about in the podcast proper, where it just got so ridiculous that I got a little bit giddy, was when all those cars were jumping out of the parking garage.
It's just bananas. It's just so fake and unrealistic that you go into these movies knowing you need to shut your brain off, but even that scene sort of woke me up like, okay, come on, guys. You can't just make up stuff like this. And the next movie, I guarantee one of these next movies, before they end the franchise for good, we're going to see Dom hit a button and just take off. His car is just going to come off of the ground like a DeLorean, and he's going to fly away. That's how the franchise ends. It's him doing his time machine, exit into the frame. I wouldn't put it past this franchise.
It's going to end with him getting in an Uber and just sitting in the backseat, just being casually taken to the airport. But
Dom will play
that would be a completely different way of doing it.
Dom will play the Christopher Lloyd.
He'll
do the 1.21 gigawatts.
Where we're going, we don't need roads, and they definitely didn't in this movie. So, what was there a sequence after that before we get to Siberia?
Before we get to the submarine?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they do several versions.
We need to talk about why Dom is actually helping.
Right.
So we find out that Dom has a son through Elena. That was her name, right? It was Elena, right?
Yeah, Elena.
So
yeah, and I actually really liked that of all the characters. Like I said, it was a short list. I liked that was the character they brought back, because Dom had history with her. They had a romantic relationship in the 4th and 5th movies when Letty was presumed dead. And to bring her back, it was plausible. It totally fit the soap opera relationship web that this franchise has established. I don't know that I guess it fits Dom's character that he would immediately sacrifice everything he's ever built for a son he just met. But it felt like maybe he should have had a couple more scenes with the son before he just immediately said, "This is it."
Man, I gotta tell you, as John, you're not a parent, are you?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But I guess I have to be. I wouldn't know in that situation, but it seemed interesting. Not that I don't believe his decisions. I just wanted to see more evidence of it. If that makes sense.
I was going to ask you guys about this in general, anyway, as non-parents, about how the baby impacted you guys, because for me, it changed things big time. Knowing that was his son, I bought in on a different level, and I couldn't talk about this during the podcast proper because it's such a spoiler. Yeah. But I think that's one of the biggest reasons that I felt like the heart in this worked as well as it did, because I bought everything from then on out about, and I was having a hard time buying the Dom turning on his friends kind of thing, even if it had just been her in there. I would have been like, yeah, I get it, But as soon as it was a baby, I was like, oh, all bets are off. I mean, that feeling you get of just I will crash the entire world around me to make sure that this little being stays safe. Mm-hmm. There's just nothing like it,
So for me, here's what I was curious about. Whenever Cypher initially approaches him in Havana, I was wondering, does he need more proof than just seeing Elena with a baby and oh, that's my baby, then I guess. I would have been like, this could have been photoshopped or something like that.
Well, it was I wouldn't think it was the baby she showed him. I would have thought it was both of them that she showed him.
I sort of inferred that the baby was not something in the original photograph, because Dom seemed quite surprised by that reveal when he was on the airplane.
Yeah, I think
and I think it was just, here's your old girlfriend.
Yeah,
she's tied up in my custody. I say jump, you say how high, otherwise I'm going to slit her neck or something.
Yeah,
and or in the case of the film, shoot her in the head.
Yeah.
It was. I think it worked. I think it was a good a start plot mechanism to get Dom off his butt. Why would he leave the security and sanctity and the sort of humdrum retirement of Cuba to go back into this world of crime? And I think that it made sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have, I'm trying to remember, Tormund Giantsbane shoots Elena in the head, and Tormund Giantsbane, the guy from Game of Thrones with the big beard.
Yeah.
I kind of saw that coming. That was kind of, because there's no way both her and Letty can be, with Dom. So I'm like, they're obviously going to be choosing Letty in this situation. So
they had kind of already written her out of the films anyway.
Yeah.
So when they brought her back in, I kind of assumed, all right, this is to officially get rid of her for good. And as you mentioned in the podcast proper, Andrew, that the movie is overstuffed with characters. They have to start trimming it back, and at least they made some progress in that. They got rid of Elena. They brought in Scott Eastwood, but
they brought her back just to get rid of her. That's like adding 1 to -1. You're still left with 50 people you got to cut out. But they find out Cypher is working to go to Russia to steal a nuclear submarine so that she will become pretty much a world superpower. And that if any of the other superpowers like China, the United States, if any of them step out of line, she's going to nuke them. So they head over there. They start trying to hack the sub remotely, which doesn't work. And then she's trying to unhack their hack, which doesn't work because you can't.
That scene seemed sort of clumsily structured, for lack of a better description, especially the moment where at one point they pull the guidance chips and they know that there's nothing they can do to stop the sub. So quickly, in almost a single cut, everyone is off the submarine and back in their cars. And part of me was thinking, well, obviously this is to set up the big sub chase that extends for the last 30 minutes. It's only supposed to be 10 miles, but they're driving for at least a half an hour.
It's another airstrip scene.
Yeah, which is whatever. If there's any spot that would be run out forever, it's a frozen lake in Siberia.
Yeah.
I could buy that. But they explicitly wrote in dialogue that gave it a distance. It's like, why? Why do that? Why not just say it's 50 miles? We don't care.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, why did they not stay on the sub and keep trying to sabotage it from inside? I didn't really understand the decision to leave and get in a car, which you're at a huge disadvantage in a car to stop a submarine. I feel like you'd have better luck staying on board trying to, either turn it or dismantle it or shut it down from inside. Did you guys have any theories on that, or is it just you didn't even notice?
I stopped asking those questions. I really did. It's like asking why Michael Phelps isn't shooting baskets while he's swimming. It's just that's not what's going on here. It's like
after Carpocalypse 2017, I stopped caring about questions
I will say
physics.
The other thing that did stand out to me in that line is how many henchmen and henchman vehicles were there that just, 5 more would appear when there needed to be somebody chasing them. I'm just like, where are all these people coming from?
Yeah.
That did seem interesting that there was one of the heat-seeking missiles took out a whole bunch of the convoy that was chasing them. And then in the next scene, there seemed to be another 5 still chasing them.
That's what I'm saying. It was so
And I was
weird.
like, well, isn't there a giant puddle now that they would have to drive around? And you're now miles and miles from that base. How many cars started after them, and were they all just equally spaced? Right, that there's 5 vehicles chasing them, and then exactly 30 seconds back, there's another 5.
Well, you can't have them all together. You'll just fall through the ice.
Yeah, and I am positive they broke up a good deal of that ice, and now it was probably just that's a shot we probably could have used at the end of that sequence. Was a big aerial shot that showed just a trail of gas, fire, and exposed frozen water.
Yeah.
Which I think we kind of got at the end of 6 with the big runway. I want to remember that at the end of that movie, we saw a shot that showed most of the runway with just cars exploded on either side and a trail of fire leading to the airplane. I kind of wanted to see that shot, a big wide shot of everything they just did.
Yeah. There was a small
I can only imagine how awful it would have looked. It would have just been so many explosions and holes in the ice and a submarine in the middle.
I liked some of that sub stuff. I liked every time.
I loved it. I thought it was really fun.
I liked when it came out of the water below them. I thought the shots of the cars driving above the ice from below the ice were really cool. Mm-hmm. There were some, moments, obviously ridiculous moments, like the door surfing thing, which I actually kind of enjoyed. I think what I liked
it, but it was dumb.
It was certainly dumb. I think what I enjoyed about it was how it finished, where he just like stood up and like took out like 5 of them with a gun or something, and it was just, I don't know, there was something really cool about it. And I will tell you, at the end of all that sub stuff, when the cars form a wall around Dom after he's made the final, I actually got a little emotional. I was like, there was something about them.
That was a cool moment.
Yeah,
that was a very Fast and Furious moment.
Yeah, there was something about that I was just like, yeah, that's what this movie's about. But yeah, so overall, I enjoyed that. The other scene that's going on at the same time as all this that I also really enjoyed is the baby escape with Statham and Luke Evans.
He just
did you guys like that scene? Because that was like my favorite whole movie.
I loved it. I loved that. Yeah, that was one of my favorites as well.
It's because he just kept doing one-liners to the baby. If he did
funny.
If he did 1 or 2 one-liners to that baby, it would have been fine. But that was another scene of insane shaky cam and quick cuts that just drove me crazy. But after every single person he killed, he would look at the baby, say one-liner, the baby would go, eh, and then he would kill more people.
Because it was hilarious.
No, it was way too dumb for me. It was funny at the beginning, and then it got dumb, but it never got funny again for me.
Yeah. What was he listening to on the headphones? Does anybody remember?
Yeah, it was
originally it was Alvin and the Chipmunks Christmas.
That's right. Yeah. Just everything about that was just, I don't know. It was obviously completely ridiculous. That baby would be dead. We all know it, but I'm just saying it was, it was funny.
Yeah, exactly. So, everything's good at the end of the movie. He's got the baby back, and
he's got his baby back.
Baby back. And then they named the baby Brian, which Aaron and I saw from a mile away, but apparently the lady sitting next to us was so happy for her.
Yeah, the woman sitting next to us almost jumped out of her seat applauding when they said his name was Brian.
Yeah.
So, no, I get it.
You're saying that some people didn't see that coming?
I know, especially when they're blatant enough to be like, well, the baby doesn't have a first name. I wonder what it'll be.
Aaron and I are like, oh, it does. Yeah, it does.
That baby has a first name.
Yeah.
And it's not O-S-C-A-R.
There were 2 moments in the film where my wife and I exchanged, very pointed glances as if to say, like, all right. One was when Jason Statham was shot. My wife turned to me like, yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah.
And then the other moment was when we heard when Elena said he doesn't have a first name, and I turned to her like, it's Brian.
I thought it was either going to be Paul or Brian.
I thought it would be. Part of me kind of hoped they would have named the baby Paul after the actor.
Yeah.
But I realized that wouldn't have any resonance with the characters.
Yeah, it wouldn't make any sense. Yeah.
I had it down.
But I kind of wanted to see that like a more overt nod to the real human behind the character, not just Brian O'Connor, who I had to remind myself, Brian is still alive in this universe.
They talk about him.
And it feels like he's dead.
Yeah, you know why?
Like
it has to feel that way because he is dead. But at the same time, like if he is alive in this universe, he shows up, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing. That's why it feels like there's such a missing link there. Because if Brian really exists in this universe, he's going to show up.
Yeah,
right. That's what I don't get. Is I understand that he's retired and he wants to stay out of the action. But that nice little family reunion barbecue at the end of the film, he should be on that rooftop, hanging out, eating burgers, and meeting his friend's new son.
Yeah,
like, how would he not be part of that moment? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Do you feel like this franchise has to deal with that? Do you feel like they have to?
Yes.
I don't want them to bring him back as like a CGI zombie every single time the plot requires it. And I don't know that I want them to kill him off, but like I feel like killing him off might have made sense. It would have given the characters the same emotional sort of resonance and impact that we had. Because at the end of the 7th movie, they're all looking at him on the beach like he died. Like, he's the happiest he's ever been. Why are you guys all sad? And it's like, we know why they're sad, because they're not looking at Paul Walker. They're looking at his younger brother, Kobe. But it's one of those things that there's that disconnect between reality and fiction that I feel like it would have been easier from a plot structure and a narrative just to have them be the same. And having them go literally on, diverging on 2 separate roads, it does kind of give a confusing feeling. When Tyrese Gibson mentioned, like, Brian would know what to do, we should call him. And I'm like, oh, that's right. He's still alive in this movie.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why movies have stopped recasting roles? Like, Dumbledore was recast.
I thought about that. I really thought about that.
Why couldn't somebody else play Brian?
I think it's because he's such an intricate part of that story that, like, Paul Walker is Brian.
Well, I know, but yeah.
It's kind of like how in The Dark Knight they didn't recast Heath Ledger's Joker for Dark Knight Rises. Because
But
Joker
they
was
did
supposed to be in the
recast
third
Rachel
one.
Dawes.
Yeah, they did recast her.
Right? They replaced Maggie Gyllenhaal with Katie
Holmes.
Katie Holmes, or the other way around. So, I mean, in that very franchise, they recast it. Iron Man and Iron Man 2, they went from Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle. They still recast, but Aaron's right. They seem afraid of it in the bigger roles.
Because here's the thing. You're recasting, Rachel Dawes. You're not recasting Batman in a series. And that's what Paul Walker was for this. He was the Batman. If not him, then Vin Diesel. But you know what I'm saying? You can't recast the main guy and expect there to be no ramifications.
To be fair, if we, without even leaving the Batman franchise, we did go from Michael Keaton to George Clooney to Val Kilmer, and they kept the same Alfred. They kept the same universe, ostensibly. And they switched out the lead actor.
And James Bond does it. And
James Bond does it. I think there is a precedent, but it seems lately the trend has been, like, keep the original actor at all costs, which is why Robert Downey Jr. can command upwards of $50 million per picture, because Marvel is too afraid just to get somebody else.
Yeah, and those movies are
When
making
they totally
$50 billion. So
yeah. I mean, they're not. Disney's not short for cash, certainly, but it is interesting. Where I think just 20 years ago they would have been like, "All right, you take a walk. We'll find somebody else."
They did that with, like you said, they did that with Terrence Howard.
So my son just told me, and this is coming from a very unreliable source, so I don't know that this is true.
How dare you say that about your son?
But he said that they're recasting Leia for Episode 9.
I haven't heard that.
They're actually getting a different actress to play her instead of doing the computer-generated thing because people reacted to it.
I'm okay with this because I feel like I want movies to stay faithful to the narrative and the characters and not to whatever confines that may hinder reality.
I think I'm okay with it too.
And it's awful and it's depressing that Carrie Fisher is no longer with us. But I think it would be maybe not more awful, but it would be, I think, a disservice to the franchise to just have her be absent from a movie that, would require her presence in some way. And she's such an integral part to those movies, just like Brian O'Connor is to the Fast franchise. To just have them written out it does a disservice to the fans. And it'd be hard to like recast them, but it would make this story better. You would be like, why is Brian not in Cuba with Dom at the beginning of this movie?
Exactly.
Doesn't make any. I get why he doesn't come with them, and he doesn't go to Russia, and he doesn't go to New York. But like, Brian should have been in Cuba hanging out. There's no reason why he wasn't there.
Well, it's a honeymoon.
Yeah, that's true. It is their honeymoon.
All right, the honeymoon. That's fair. Well, then the scene at the end, the scene in New York when they're all having.
The better example.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like he should be hanging out with them.
And that's the movie.
Because he's there when they're not being shot at. There's no reason why he has to retire from that part of their lives.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree, and I am not opposed to recasting. We suspend our disbelief for other things. I think you could get past it pretty quickly, but I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority on that. So, but that's just me. Well, there you go.
We did it.
Anything else that we wanted to spoil in Fate of the Furious?
What else happened in this movie? It was so packed with stuff.
Vroom, boom, vroom.
We didn't talk about the girls' soccer team doing the haka.
That was interesting.
I don't want to play anymore.
Oh, I stand corrected. There were 3 moments where my wife and I exchanged those pointed glances. That was the first. As soon as they cut to Dwayne's voiceover and he starts talking about, like, you are warriors on a battlefield,
right.
I just nudged my wife's elbow like he's talking to children. He is 100% talking to kids.
I thought it was a paintball game at first.
Yeah, I didn't know what the context was, but I was positive it wasn't actual soldiers.
Yeah.
There was just a way every movie does that, especially at the beginning of a movie to set up a character like that.
It's the way they frame that shot that makes it obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. Tight.
And they pull out wide, and it's just a bunch of girls.
Yep. There you go. Well, thanks, John. Appreciate you sticking around for spoilers, man. So we've said goodbye to John, sent him on his way, but Andrew and I still hanging around. We'd love to catch up on Legion and Big Little Lies spoilers.
Ah, yes.
Now, I don't want to talk another hour in addition to what we just talked about, Fate of the Furious. But did you have 1 or 2 things you wanted to mention about those? Because I know people were asking about it on Twitter.
Which one do you want to start with?
Either one. I don't care.
Let's start with Big Little Lies, because I think that's the one that can lend itself to talking spoilers.
Yeah.
There's so much density in Legion that it's just really hard to break it down.
I don't know what I would really need to talk about with Legion, spoiler-wise?
So with Big Little Lies, you have Nicole Kidman and Alexander Skarsgård's character. I think that's the thing that most people are going to want to hear about as far as spoilers go, what our thoughts were. I didn't know, I had it narrowed down to 2 people who I thought that was going to be Shailene Woodley's boy's father.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be, I thought that for a long time, I thought that Alexander Skarsgård's character was going to be a red herring, and that it was going to end up being Adam Scott was going to be the father, because they talked about him being an architect and stuff. Well, he was a web designer, which is a web architect, and I thought that was going to be like a little Easter egg, because the whole time I'm like, she's never met Adam Scott. She's always hanging out with Reese Witherspoon.
Right.
But she's never met Adam Scott's character. And I thought that was going to be... But when it turned out to be Alexander Skarsgård, I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And another reason why I thought it was going to be Adam Scott is because the guy she goes to meet, who she thinks, kind of looked like Adam Scott.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I'm like, I was like, I'm getting there, but it turned out it was Alexander Skarsgård. That last episode, man.
Yeah.
Whew.
I was pretty convinced early on that it was Skarsgård.
Really?
That was both the father of her child and the one that was going to be killed. Let's talk about who you thought was going to be killed. I was pretty sure it was going to be him. I just, with the themes of the show and the way they were playing out, I didn't really see any other options that made thematic sense to me.
Again, red herring. I didn't think it was going to be him. Like you want him to be the one. I thought he was going to kill Nicole Kidman. I thought that's who was going to be dead.
Yeah, I don't know. The theme seemed to be so much about women relationships that empower each other.
Yeah.
That I figured it would, and it really did point. I mean, by the time you got to the end, it's all of them. It's basically all of them who killed him. Although technically,
it was Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah,
who knocked him down.
Actually pushed. Did the final push, which I never would have guessed. In fact, I didn't see her being part of that group.
I didn't see Laura Dern, but it was all of them.
Yeah, it was, and that was the point. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. That was the thematic point. Was about the complexity of female relationships and yet how they can be strong together. And I just, I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah. Things I wanted to talk about. Man, I can't recommend that show enough. It's just, is there anything that's like eating you? Did you see the whole Reese Witherspoon theater affair going on?
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
I didn't see the car wreck coming either.
Oh, yeah. See, he was another one I thought was going to get it.
Yeah.
He was going to be the one that dies because maybe he was going to go crazy and Reese Witherspoon kills him.
Yeah.
But
and that stuff with the daughter was interesting.
Yeah.
There were like a lot of red herrings, but I thought they all were interesting enough on their own. I thought it was super weird when all of a sudden Adam Scott's character shaved his beard for the last episode.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
To look like Elvis, sort of.
Also, the worst lip sync I've ever seen in a TV show.
That was so bad. It didn't sound like either of them.
I know. It's like he stands behind the microphone and all of a sudden he has this totally different voice.
And like, what? I made that joke too whenever I was watching. Like, I did a Scooby-Doo. Yeah, it was so bad.
The only other thing I would mention with Big Little Lies is the end shows, we're assuming, or does it actually make it explicit? I'm trying to remember. Somebody's watching them all with binoculars. Does it make it explicit that it's the cop?
I thought it was.
So, like, something is still going on. Like, there's, either they're trying to figure out, if there's something deeper, or, do the cops know something we don't know about? So I don't know. There's still some unanswered threads there that you could pull on.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you want them to leave well enough alone, or do you want there to be a second season?
Oh, I'm in general, I am of the opinion leave well enough alone.
Me too.
If you nail something and complete it this way.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. Just leave it right there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. HBO does it again.
Yeah, I can't think of anything from Legion that I would want to spoil.
Yeah. I did. I think it was in the first episode that we talked, or the third episode, whenever we talked about it initially on Sif Pop, that I said that I thought it was going to be the Shadow King, and it was the Shadow King. Felt good about that. So
cool.
Yeah.
Eventually, he goes into. They get him out of David, but he goes into her husband that was lost in the ice cube for so long.
Yeah, Jermaine Clement.
Yeah, Clement's character.
I love his character.
Yeah.
He's so fun. And I think that the for season 2, whenever it's going to be him and Aubrey Plaza working off of each other, there's going to be some magic there that I'm really excited for.
Well, there's also going to be some magic with a pure David, like who gets to understand what it means to be David.
So
with his powers.
Has anybody spoiled for you who he's related to or anything?
It was in the episode. There was a wheelchair, and they said something about. Anyways, yes, I know the father is Xavier.
Yeah. Okay. So Professor X is David's dad. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things. Like, if they ever were to reveal that, because Patrick Stewart said, even though
I thought they did reveal that. I thought there was something where I put it together somehow.
Okay. Because Patrick Stewart said, yes, Logan was my last X-Men movie, but I would absolutely love to be in Legion. He said he wants to be in Legion. Yeah.
Nice.
So, fingers crossed. That'd be really cool.
There you go.
He was so excited by the prospect of it because apparently he thinks the show is fascinating.
It is fascinating. There's no doubt about it.
There's never been any superhero show or movie like this before.
Oh, no. I don't know that there's been any show like this before. Like, it's off its rocker in such a great way.
Now, if you did not know this is in the X-Men universe, is there anything in the show to lend you? They say mutant, but that's a generic word. Unless X-Men actually owns the right to the word mutant, I'm not sure.
I think they do because Marvel can't use it in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's true.
They have to call them Inhuman, or is it Inhumans? What do they call them?
Enhanced.
Enhanced? Yeah, something like that.
So, besides that one word, is there anything in the show that really lends you to believe it's in the X-Men universe? Oh, also the O in Legion is the X.
That would be my major giveaway is it's got the X symbol.
Yeah. But I mean, like, actual, like, meat of the show to let you know.
I think I'd be asking that question.
Okay.
I'd be like, if not, I'd be like, man, this sure is a lot like mutants, like the X-Men mutants. Like, so, but yeah, I think you would be led to think that way at least.
Okay. Because I don't know, because you and me, we knew going in.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to know for sure how you would feel.
Yeah. Man, both amazing shows, and I'm glad that we got the
Now that
chance.
is a show I'm ready for season 2.
Yeah.
You don't have to leave well enough alone on that one.
Exactly.
Keep on going.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for sticking around a little bit. And chatting those things because I know some people wanted to hear it. As always, thanks for subscribing to Sif Pop and for checking out the Sif Spoil episode as well. I'm not sure what we'll be spoiling next week. Some weeks we don't have a Sif Spoil, and next week maybe one of those weeks. So we'll just kind of see how it goes. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
And we'll catch you next time.